go to the reality. Why are we here? So I think best done by Jennifer. Can you please walk us through this?
Absolutely, happy to. So as Aftab had mentioned earlier, we are very curious about everyone who's in attendance today. We're going to try and use this QR that you see here on the page. There's a QR code, so please scan that using your mobile devices. And in the poll, tell us what industry you're currently working in. While those results are coming in, I will get started.
Yep, I'm trying myself.
Yeah. Okay, great. I was going to say, I'll let you test it and alert me if there's any issues with it. Okay. So I'd like to start with a simple question. I want everyone to think about something that you've purchased recently. Maybe it was on your phone or maybe on your computer, but perhaps it was a pair of shoes or food from the grocery store or something else that you've ordered online. And think about before it reaches you, how many companies do you think were involved? I think that the answer here is usually far more than what we imagine. Every product depends on a supply chain. So today's supply chains, we know, are much more complex than they were even just a few years ago. Customers expect faster delivery than ever before. Companies are sourcing materials from around the world, not just locally. AI and automation are really changing how work is getting done. And we know the word sustainability, it's not just a buzzword out there. It's becoming part of the business decisions that are being made. And then we have geopolitical events, right, that can disrupt supply chains quite literally overnight. So, notice something very interesting here, that none of these 5 components here are challenges that exist by themselves. They all influence one another. So for me, during my career in manufacturing and operations, I learned that supply chain isn't just about moving products or parts. It's about solving problems. And every day, teams have to make decisions with incomplete information, right, or forecasted information. We have changing customer needs and supplier issues and really unexpected disruptions happening all the time. And that's what makes this profession both challenging and very exciting. And because supply chain has become so very important, organizations around the world are really looking for people with the right skills. So after we take a look at these poll results, let's look at what the employers out there are looking for today.
Okay.
So
we want to move the slide on, Jennifer?
Sure. Let's see what's popping up.
Okay, so there seems to be some technical glitch with this tool. I scan the code myself, so maybe I'm the account holder, I don't know. But you see this code on the screen, 68431956. If it asks for a code, please enter that. Maybe it will work for you, but it didn't work for me, maybe because I'm running the presentation. That could be a reason.
Okay.
New code, 6843. I'm entering it, 68431956. So it just asked me to join. So no, that didn't work. The way it should work should be a pop-up quiz on your screen. Somehow that is not working. I apologize for that, but we are not limited to this technology. We can always use the chat. So please, if you could enter in the chat which industry you're working in, manufacturing, or let's go to the next slide. Yeah, over here. Okay.
Yes, so it's not showing up. Well, that's okay. Yeah. If folks here want to, participate through the chat, we'll be happy to take a look at that. And
scan from here. Difference.
We've got food and beverage.
Yes, exactly. So I'm sorry, that was wrong screen. This is screen waiting to scan, so it came up on my screen immediately. So I'm saying I'm participating in it. I'm saying services. See.
Wonderful.
And submit.
This is great. Thank you, everyone. And we've got oil and gas coming in and food and beverage so far.
Yep.
Let's see. Great. Thank you, everyone who's participating here and patient with our technical difficulties.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. I think that the important part to remember is that whether you're working in healthcare, manufacturing, retail, technology, energy, government, really any industry, supply chain is what's connecting them all together, right? Remember, each of those arrows on the former page, none of them are separate silos, right? They all influence and impact each other.
Okay, very good.
Great. This is great.
Yeah. So we got a presentation from restaurant catering, very common, widespread, occupation, services. We are distribution, manufacturing, none. Port operation, none. So maybe we're not people from there. How about the oil and gas? Yeah, that's like you mentioned, Jennifer. Oil and gas. That's big in Nigeria, of course. Okay.
This is great.
Food and beverage. Yeah, I would say food and beverage goes into manufacturing, perhaps. So we can say manufacturing. You can have one manufacturing. Yeah, we got a broad range of occupations here or industries here.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. And I think that, again, the fact that this is so very transferable, right? We're dealing with it in pretty much any career path that you're on. There's a supply chain that you're part of, touching, relying on, one way or another.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So should I move on?
Yeah. Yes, we can move on.
Thank you.
So now we're going to look at, one of the questions that I hear most often out there is, where are the opportunities, right? And the good news is there are very, very many. So, I think that we can look at these here. These are just some of the areas where organizations continue to invest. So we've got planning and analytics, procurement, sales and operations, inventory, and logistics listed on the page, right? And although these roles are very different from each other, employers are really looking for many of the same qualities when they're looking for each of these roles to be filled. So, I've hired a lot of people into operations and leadership roles, and I can tell you that technical knowledge is very important. It really is. But it isn't enough, usually. Candidates who stood out the most were the ones who could take information, understand the business, communicate it very clearly, and help solve problems. So this graph that we see here on the page, this graph is illustrating for us something that many employers are experiencing today, right? The demand for qualified professionals out there, it continues to grow faster than the supply of people who have the right combination of technical skills, business acumen, and communication.
Absolutely.
So I feel like this should encourage you, right? All of us. It means that companies are looking for people who are willing to keep learning and develop themselves. So that brings us to another important question, right? If employers are looking for these skills, where should you invest your own time and energy? So I'm going to hand this over to Aftab now to talk about the next slide and about the best investments that you can make in your own career.
Exactly. And just pick up on a very important note that you just said, Jennifer, that the gap. While I hear that there are not enough jobs, people are struggling. On the other hand, employers cannot find the right fit of people. They're struggling too. So look at the job postings, and you'll see that there is a gap between the applicants and what they expect. So if you know the gap, then all it takes for us is to step ahead, fill the gap, and be in the qualified bracket. So, like I said, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at ourselves. The most valuable asset that we have is ourselves, our own time, our own life. If we are capable, the difference between somebody who's progressing the ladders of achievements and going from place to place, changing jobs and becoming senior manager, director, is a matter of skills. How you present them, how to acquire them, how to present them, how to demonstrate them. Just to have a skill is one part, but also to showcase it and to have some document or some credential that people can look at it and say, okay, yeah, that demonstrates that you have the commitment, the investment in yourself, you've taken the training, you have used it in your experience. So that enriches your entire journey of career advancement. Practical skills, the supply chain management and related skills are all about practical applications. And that's why we uh, put a lot of emphasis on using the tools that we use on a daily basis. For example, models built in Excel spreadsheets, simple down-to-earth models, what-if analysis, make or buy analysis, and location models. They're all very practical tools, and you don't need very high-level technology like IT knowledge. We don't expect anybody to have any idea about the back-end processing. We all expect each other to know a little bit about the Microsoft tools, Excel mainly, Word, PowerPoint, and then we also coach them if they need on the data analytics using Power BI, but that's like another area. But what we're saying here is that credentials, first of all, the skills, then demonstrable credentials, and then learning is a continuous, is a habit. Learning is a habit, right? If I spend like a half hour on social media, very important to stay connected, to learn what's going on, but I also spend like half hour or maybe more on actual reading a book, watching a video or clip that has some learning for me, a case study or what's going on in the business world, just news. John Deere opened a new plant in Mexico. Why? Because of tariffs? No, tariffs were announced in February. They made the decision like 2 years ago. So what was the reason? Offshore, inshore, backshore. When you read those articles, you read the news, go to a webinar, you ask yourself questions, that enriches your thinking. Now you're a different person now, or a little bit. And when you make a decision, you ask questions of your own peers, colleagues, your supervisor. And that shows that you know what's going on, and it sharpens your thinking. So next we are going to another interesting survey, right? So because it's all about us, we need to be in the picture. Here's the question. Which skill do you plan to develop in the next 6 months? Don't go too far, just 6 months maybe, and then we can build upon that. So again, I'm gonna open my cell phone, scan the code, and see what happens.